everyone, and welcome to another session of the 2021 Shine Conference. Today, we are going to be looking at literature search tips, and the presenter for this topic is Stella Seal, who is the lead informationist at the Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing, Hospital, and Health System Services. Welcome, Stella.
Thank you very much, Vicki. It's a pleasure to be here. I always like chatting and interacting with my nursing colleagues.
Great. Can you start us off by telling us what is the process for a literature search? How do I get started?
Certainly. There are several steps to the literature search process. And I know that many of us, we don't think about searching as a process, but it really is kind of a process. A lot of us just sort of sit and we go onto Google and start typing things in. But really, for literature searching, we need to step back and we need to think about what we need to go through. And so the first step is where we need to assess. We need to assess our topic, our scope, the goals of the project, and what resources we want to look at or include in that search. Then from there, based on our topic, we need to think about some search terms that we're going to use and how are we going to combine them together. Which ones are synonyms for each other, which ones are differing concepts that we want to see in that search. Then from there, we move into choosing our controlled vocabulary and beginning our searching. So there's, as you can see, there's a couple of steps that we should be doing before we even start typing in a database. Once we've searched in the database, we need to document what we've done. So, what database did we search? What terms did we use? Did we apply any limits or anything like that? Then we have to evaluate the evidence, and then if necessary, revise the search. So the first steps up to the last step, you can think of in the acronym ABCDE: assess, brainstorm, choose, document, and evaluate. And to go into it in a little more detail, so assessing. Assess your topic. And we have on this slide here some web pages that are on the library that can help you think about how to assess your topic, how to assess your scope and goal. Think about the databases that you might want to search. Think about how you might find that literature in the database. And then also think about, what do you need this information for? How much information do you really need to answer this question? Needing one or two quick articles to talk about in a journal club is very different from looking for references to revise a protocol or for a systematic review. They all have different needs, and so they require different levels of searching and how much effort you need to put into that search and how many results you should expect to get. But in all cases, you want to think about putting that information need into an answerable question. PICO is a good start for that. Connected with the topic assessment, what are your key concepts? What terms or words would you expect the literature to use, or have you seen being used in the literature? This is a good time when you're working on a search to think about starting a Word document. Write out, what is your question? And then what are your topic areas? And what are some search concepts that are going to be relevant to this question? And then,
so can you talk a little bit more about that? What are some good places to search for high quality evidence?
Certainly, lots of places to search. Depends on your topic. In the biological sciences, you have PubMed, which is really the Medline database. That's the bulk of what you're searching when you're searching PubMed. People use PubMed and Medline interchangeably, but they're really subtly different from each other. Medline being the database, PubMed being the interface that you use to search Medline from the National Library of Medicine. Then there's also Embase, which is a database similar in size and scope to PubMed that's more European in focus. There's the Cochrane Library, and those are all good for general biology, but also clinical medicine. Now in nursing, not only do you want to look at those biological sciences, but you also want to include CINAHL Plus, JBI, Nursing Reference Center. If your question has got a psychological component to it, you may want to look at APA PsycInfo or sociological abstracts. If it's a business question, something like staff retention, human resources, You may want to look at some databases such as ABI Inform or Business Source Ultimate. If it's an education question, you'll want to look at ERIC, JSTOR, or the education database. And frequently in nursing, or even in medicine, but in nursing, if you want to do a comprehensive literature search, you can't just search one database and say you're done. It's not a one and done thing. You frequently have to search multiple databases, particularly, as I said before, for comprehensive or systematic review type of searching. And it's often considered best practice to search more than one database.
So that's really helpful. When I'm getting ready to do that search, what is the best way to come up with search terms or keywords? How do I know what I'm searching?
Good question. So how do you find those terms? It's easy enough to say brainstorm, but so how do you go about doing that brainstorm? Well, you've already written out your concept, so that's one place to start for your terms. So what did you write in your concept? And then think of synonyms, antonyms, any initials or acronyms, variations in spelling. And by variations in spelling, frequently I'm thinking like the differences between American English and British English. Write them down in your document and sort them by key concepts. So you may want to have your document in columns. So search concept 1 and the concept from your search statement and your synonyms and such underneath. And then same for concept 2 and concept 3. And then just to start, now this isn't your final search, but just to start, use some of those concepts in a quick literature search. Look at the articles that you're getting. How many of them are using the same concepts you are? How many of them are using other concepts? What concepts are they using? And do this for those articles, I say key articles, those articles that you think would be most applicable to your question. And then, that's how you examine how they use the terminology around that topic. And then depending on the database, in some databases, they use a controlled vocabulary that helps to make their content more discoverable. Think of controlled vocabulary like Twitter hashtags. And in PubMed, it's called medical subject headings or MESH. So if you're working with a librarian or an informationist like myself, and they say MESH terms, what we're talking about is that controlled vocabulary, those hashtags that describe what articles are about in Medline. In Embase, it's called Mtree. CINAHL Plus, it's called CINAHL subject headings. APA PsycInfo, they just call it thesaurus. And every database uses its own controlled vocabulary. And controlled vocabulary can be, so the question is, what's the big deal behind controlled vocabulary? Why? Well, as I said already, it acts like a standardized hashtag. And it's how you find records in a database. It's how they're discoverable because, and this is a really important point to remember, for most of these databases, you're never searching the full text of the articles. So how do you know what those articles are about? That controlled vocabulary, which has been assigned by an indexer, tells you, the reader, what that article is about. And it's a consistent way. So if you can think of like all the different ways that you can talk about pain control or asthma or heart attack, for heart attack, myocardial infarction, acute MI, asthma, reactive airway disorder, all those differing terms for different words for what is the same concept. By searching in MESH on myocardial infarction, which is the controlled vocabulary term for that, you'll get every article in PubMed that talks about heart attack, regardless of whether the author said heart attack, myocardial infarction, or if they used it in the title or abstract or not. If they had a cute title, didn't say myocardial infarction or heart attack, but that is what they're talking about, the indexer will assign that subject heading. It helps when there's ambiguity in meaning. Retention. I love getting retention searches. Are we talking staff retention, urinary retention, psychological retention? So that word retention, it's got a lot of different meanings. It helps for the variations in spellings, the OR versus OUR, the American English versus British English. And as I've said before, we're just repeating down the final bullet here. It's MESH and PubMed, Sinal headings and Sinal, M-tree and M-base, thesaurus in PsycInfo.
That's helpful. I can really see where that language would matter. Retention does mean a lot of things. I was thinking retention of staff. So there you go, yet another way. So do you have any pro tips or advice for someone who is new to performing a literature search? What are the inside scoop? Help me get where I want to go.
Okay. First thing first, recognize that any pro tips I give you aren't going to make you an expert searcher in 5 minutes.
Okay. I won't hold you to that.
Would that they could, but these are some of the tips that I, as a searcher, use all the time, and I teach whenever I demonstrate whenever I teach, because I think they're that important. I and my colleagues. One of the first things is when you're searching for phrases, don't be afraid to use quotation marks. Absolutely use quotation marks. You get very different search results if you type opioid abuse without quotation marks than if you type opioid abuse with quotation marks. It's got to do for a number of different reasons. One is, in most databases, they have a back-end process that's referred to, as an example in PubMed, is automatic term mapping. The programmers have said, okay, do this if the searcher doesn't tell you what to do with your search. That means when you just typed your words in. Now, if you put your words in quotation marks, it turns off that automatic term mapping. And so you get that phrase exactly the way you want it, which is important for multi-word phrases. You don't want a database to take a phrase like opioid abuse or pain management and say opioid and abuse. And then you get a very legitimate return of opioid in the title and abuse in the abstract, but the article doesn't have anything to do with opioid abuse. But it's a valid search return because it just ended. Whereas you said opioid abuse in quotation marks, you have to get those 2 words next to each other. Another good search tip is truncation. Some databases refer to it as stemming. Google does stemming automatically. But truncation is you type so much of a word, what we refer to as the root, and then you put a truncation symbol. The most common truncation symbol is the asterisk. So as we have in the example here, you type adolescent and an asterisk, and the database will return adolescents with the CE, adolescent with the T, adolescents with the TS. If you typed infect, INFECT, asterisk, you'll get infect, infects, infected, infecting, infectious, infectionable. So you'll get all of those possible additions to infect. You can, in many databases, use it within a phrase. It's inside quotation marks, but you can only use it on the last word.
Okay.
So I can type substance abuse asterisk, but I can't type substance asterisk abuse asterisk.
Got it.
Other tips, combining your search terms. You've probably heard the term Boolean operators, the Boolean logic, and or not. We're kind of going back to high school set theory when you think about this. In all databases, it's a good habit to uppercase your Boolean operators, and or not. There are a few databases that'll work if you don't, but some won't if you don't. So always capitalize the and, the or the not. So you use or to combine synonyms because you'd be okay with finding any of those other terms. So as I have in the examples here, opioid or heroin or fentanyl for types of opioids, you could go on, or morphine or whatever. Pain management or analgesia, post-operative or post-surgical or post-op. Concepts you use and when you want 2 different concepts to both appear together in the article. So if we were looking for post-operative pain management in patients who abuse or have opioid dependency, we would say post-operative or post-surgical and pain management or analgesia and opioid or heroin or fentanyl. So we've put all of those concepts together. Now you could type in PubMed post-operative pain management in patients with opioid dependence. You'll get similar results, but you have more control when you tell the database what to do than letting the database have its head.
Got it.
And 2 other sets of tips. One is nesting. So you saw an example of nesting just on the previous slide. You nest by using parentheses. So when you have groups of concepts that you want to work together with, primarily with ORs, always put them in parentheses because databases work left to right. And if you don't use parentheses, so I go back to this post-operative or post-surgical. If I did not have parentheses, what the database would do is it would say post-operative or post-surgical, big set. Then it would end in pain. So then my next part of the search would have pain management with post-operative or post-surgical, but then it would or in analgesia. So now I've got a whole bunch of stuff that don't have anything to do with post-surgical. Then it's going to end in opioid, but now it's going to or in heroin or fentanyl. So you get very different results if you don't use these parentheses. They're it's a very important concept.
Off topic pretty quickly, couldn't it?
Oh, yes, it can do that. I got one more after this one. Field tags. If you're in a database that allows you to focus on fields, and the example I'm using primarily here is PubMed, use those field tags where you can. If you know what the controlled vocabulary is, the term is then followed by mesh. So pain management is a mesh term, but pain management quotation marks, follow it with a set of square brackets inside which would be the word mesh. And then you could text words. So if you wanted to search for the word in the title or abstract, you would put that TIAB inside the square brackets. If you just wanted to search in the title, if you wanted to search for an author name or an author affiliation. So you're looking, so for all articles have been written by Vicki Lowe when she was working at Hopkins, you could say Lowe B and Hopkins AD. And then TW searches the title, the abstract, some keywords, and the metadata. There is no full text search option because again, PubMed doesn't know how full text within PubMed. And this link takes you to a table with all of the searchable fields in PubMed. But these are the ones that are most going to be the most commonly used on this slide. And then finally, even with all of this, you may wind up with more results than you can manage. So you might want to use filters. And PubMed has some built-in filters. One of them is age. And I have to say, I think age is probably the most underused filter because people use words like pediatric or geriatric. And you'll get articles, but the problem is pediatrics, geriatrics is the specialty. What you want is the age group, which is child, which is defined in PubMed from 2 to 12 years. And then adolescent is 13 to 18. Infant is birth to 2 years. Adult is 19 plus. Aged is 65 plus. So you want to use those. If you're looking for an age population, you want to use those age headings. Then there's sex. And we do mean biological sex in this instance, male, female. We're not looking at gender identity. Those are separate subject terms. Language, I'm monolingual. For most of my searching, I limit to English. Species, searching in a database like Medline, you're going to have a lot of animal studies. You might be searching in an area where there will be animal studies. So you might want to say and human. And then there's always years of publication, last 5 years, last 10 years. If you're looking for when a new process changed, when the year that process changed. So you can use these filters. Sometimes be careful though, because you may wind up missing something that's important.
Yeah, so that I don't miss anything, do you have any tips for how to keep track and how to document along what I've been doing? How do you track that?
Word can be your friend. So I mentioned back in the beginning, starting with a Word document, putting your terms, keeping track. Once you've got a search, you've done the search, you like what's there, you can frequently just copy and paste what's in that search bar into a Word document. And bam, you've got your search strategy. Some of the databases allow you to export or save that search strategy. PubMed, when you're looking at the advanced search page, there's a nice little link there that says download, and it downloads everything that's in that search history in a format that you can open in Excel. Embase allows you to export. CINAHL, you can email yourself your search history, and then you can copy it into a Word document. And it's really important because some publishers are going to request a literature search. If you're publishing a systematic review, they may say, we need at least one of your search strategies in its appendix, because systematic reviews are supposed to be replicable. Well, the one thing that everything on that systematic review hinges on is the search strategy. And if you can't do the exact same strategy, you're not replicating the study. So however works best for you. If you work in Excel, put it in Excel. If you work best in Word, keep it in Word. The format doesn't matter. What matters is where you put it. Some of the things you want to track. Okay, what's your project? Name your, put that at the top. The database you searched, every database that you searched, and the strategy that you used in each. Because while your strategies will be similar, they won't be the same, because every database has its own control vocabulary.
Right.
It might be similar, but different from another databases. Did you search other sources? So did you actually just go to the journal's website and do a scan of their titles? Did you go to, say, AHRQ, and you were looking for references from there, other websites? Did you do that type of extra, what we refer to as gray literature searching? The date that you did any of these searches. So if you searched Medline today and Embase tomorrow and CINAHL on a third day, those are 3 different dates. So you'll want to track for each database the date you searched. Did you apply any filters? Did you limit to age? Did you limit to years? Did you limit to English? Did you limit to human? Those types of things. And then how many results you got. And then maintain a database of the citations that you retrieved. You're going to get duplicates when you search multiple databases. The most efficient way to deal with it is to throw them all into a citation manager and let the citation manager remove your duplicates. So that's how you document. Then you want to evaluate. I'm not going to get into a whole lot on the evaluation step. I have some links here with some nice tools that you might want to consider using for evaluating the evidence. But there are whole courses out there on evaluating the evidence and whole books. The Johns Hopkins Evidence-Based Nursing Practice Guide has a whole section in its appendix on evaluation. So then, just some general overall good database searching tips. Use the standardized subject headings, the control vocabulary. Use filters. Now, this is one I didn't talk about in too much detail, but the publication types are a specific filter. When you're looking for evidence, these are good filters when you're looking to do an evidence-based search. Meta-analysis, practice guidelines, randomized controlled trials, reviews. Track your search history. I just can't emphasize tracking that search history enough. And then if it takes you more than 20 minutes to find things that you're looking for, talk to your librarian. We're here to help you.
Very good advice.
And with that said, here are 2 of us that you could go to based on our areas of expertise. My colleague, Ellie Shiba, but Ellie she goes by, she's the informationist for Johns Hopkins Hospital Nursing. So she works with nursing administration. She's happy to help people. I, as said, is the lead informationist for the School of Nursing, the Hopkins Hospitals and the Health System Services. So you can email me directly. I've been working with the School of Nursing in one form or another since the early 90s. So while I am myself not a nurse, I have a lot of respect for what you as nurses do and a reasonably decent understanding of what it is you're looking for when you're looking for literature.
Well, it's great to know that there are resources to help us if we get stuck. So that's amazing. What a wealth of information. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And then last but not least, just some general places to go with the Welch Library for further assistance. And I thank you for your time. This has been fun.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun and very informative. Thank you, Stella.
You're welcome.